Moms accomplish a lot. I don't need to tell you that, but some days, no matter how many errands we run or kids we shuttle or events we organize, the end results just don't feel like enough. My next guest wants to help women feel more fulfilled and believes the first step is to stop treating your to-do list like a scorecard. I'm calling that an aha right here. Connie Sokol is an author and a popular author, speaker, and founder of Back to Basics. She's here with some girlfriend-to-girlfriend advice about how to feel fulfilled at the end of our day. And as we set up this topic earlier in the show, I saw women on the floor, guests of the show, just nodding. I think every woman can connect with this empty feeling at the end of the day, no matter how full that day was.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's the difficulty as women is that we kind of create an identity towards how far down we get on our to-do list, and then how even Pinteresty it looks when we get it done, instead of being able to go back to the core of who we really are. That's what really matters.
And is that the key as we talk about shifting away, taking the to-do list out of the scorecard arena?
Yes.
Is that the key, is focusing on our worth then?
Yes, our identity is not based on how many tasks we achieve, and we forget that, and then we say, gosh, I didn't do that, and we fall into bed and go, how much is undone? And then, oh, I didn't do that right with my kids, and I didn't do that right at work, or whatever it is, and then we just ruminate on that instead of being able to say, do you know what? I did my best today. I know in my soul I did my best. That was that. Some days we're crawling into bed, some days we're going, woohoo, it was awesome, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I don't know a single woman who has not done her best at the end of the day.
That is so true, and it's an interesting dynamic as I think about it, because in the moment, when I'm checking off that to-do list, it's oddly satisfying. Like,
of
it's
course.
Almost, there's almost an adrenaline with it.
You get
like
the endorphin hit. Yes.
Endorphin hit, you want to do more and more and more, but then that crash at the end of the night you describe is where we really need to turn inward. How realistic are our expectations about ourselves, about our abilities?
Well, I think if we were left alone, we'd probably have a little more realistic expectation, but then society comes in and social media comes in and neighbors and other influences, and we just start listening to the chatter, like a radio station where we just listen to this chatter instead of getting clear about who we are. And I was just reading an article on the Huffington Post, and it was talking about the problem of viewing social media, and it's linked to higher levels of loneliness and envy and anxiety and depression. And it made sense to me because I think about social media, it isn't that this is this bad thing. Right. It's a tool. It's a powerful tool, and we have to be intentional about how we use it. I know some women, they're not that bothered by it. Other women, very bothered. Most people bothered by aimless scrolling. And I have to say, try that Marie Kobo thing where at the end of the day you go, wait a second, does this spark joy in what I'm viewing? When I get done scrolling, do I feel better about myself? Do I feel more motivation to do things with my kids, my house, my work, whatever? Do I feel better? Do I feel more light? Do you feel that way? If you don't, then it's time to look at what you're viewing and say, I need to be more intentional. Maybe it's about what you're viewing, what you're allowing on your feed. Maybe it's more of how much time am I on here? And I know we hear some of these things, but I promise the second that we get intentional about that, I've noticed it for myself. It shifts how I feel. It shifts how I feel about myself, my kids, the people. I'm not snarky. I'm not kind of nipping at people. I find that I'm just more content with who I am, and I say, that's great. And I'm more willing to be able to let people have their moment rather than be comparing and then have that joy stolen.
So you feel a difference in the output of your personal expressions when you really monitor and purposefully approach social media. I'm extremely intrigued to hear your opinion, because you've mothered both pre-social media and now during social media. You've coached women pre-social media and now during social media. Do you really see that direct correlation in the women that you work with?
Absolutely. And I think this is a struggle I have with my own children myself, is that this is not just, oh, social media is a thing. At the very beginning, I remember, okay, we don't want it in our house. We're not going to do this. And then it was, this is a fact of life.
This is it.
How are we going to approach this, and how intentional can we be? I've actually gone to my kids and got their buy-in of, here's my concerns. What can we do about that? What's your concerns? What's your needs from this? Okay, how can we find a compromise for that? And they're the ones that have come up with the great solutions on how much time to be on how to monitor those things. So we have to actually do that for ourselves.
We have to model it.
We have to model that, because women, we get sucked in, and then before we know it, we're losing our identity.
And I love the word intentional, Connie, because it's so easy to let social media be mindless.
Yes.
It's a scroll. It's
a numbing.
Numb.
At the end of the day, we're exhausted and we just go scroll, 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 but we don't realize that we're getting a hit. At the end of the day, that it's actually kind of damaging what we do. Like any powerful tool, it has the power to cut or damage if we're not careful how we use it.
Be intentional. I love that. You want us to avoid the less than vortex. Explain this.
I call it the vortex.
She got the look on her face.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And it's when you know you're on the edge, you're on the cusp, and then before you know it, you're just going down, baby, down. And you're just like that little penny thing that goes down like that. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and she said, I had this difficult conversation with a friend. You know, we want to please, we want to be nice, we want approval. And she said, got done, it was horrible. And then she said, And before I knew it, I need to lose weight. And I'm a bad house cleaner, and I'm not a good mom. And before you know it, she's just like melting, and she had no mojo to do anything. She realized, luckily, with some tips, what to do, and she started coming out of it. And the beautiful thing is that she got to an upward vortex of, now I know what to do next time that trigger happens. And so what's a great thing to do, two things, but first is to be aware of the triggers.
What are
your
the triggers,
personal triggers?
do you think?
A certain person, a certain situation, a certain feeling. So sometimes it can be when you're with someone and you know how they usually make you feel and you're already triggered. You already are feeling less than. Maybe it's in a situation, you're at work or you're at a volunteer situation and you're already feeling less than because so-and-so is much more capable. When you are more aware of, okay, I'm going into this situation or I'm going to be talking with this person, how can I be able to deal with that trigger, be aware of the trigger? And then the second thing is to combat that trigger with positive truths. Not just positive personal affirmations, those are wonderful, but I'm talking about positive truths, seeing yourself truly for who you are and the skills and the talents, strengths, and weaknesses that you have. Because sometimes if we're trying to be too cheesy with ourselves, then the truth really is before us and we really do need to improve something, and then we just crash. So instead, we can go, oh, what's the trigger? This is how I feel when I'm with this person or in this situation. I can combat that with the positive truth.
You say resetting the bar saved you.
Yes.
What did you do?
Well, I actually returned to being a B-pluser, which has saved me for 20 years. And I've learned how to be able to pull back and say, I am enough right now, today. Now this, let me be clear, this is not, I'm enough, so deal with it. You know, it's not like that. It is about, I know I'm progressing and improving and I can accept right now. I was speaking at a retreat a few months ago, and this woman, I could tell she was slouched down in the corner over there. And I had them do an exercise to help combat this. And I had her read her thing. And she was like, oh, I'm enough and I'm a good woman, I'm a da-da-da. And I said, no, stand up and say it like you mean it. And so she stood up and then she went, I am enough. And the room just shifted, and you could feel she got it in her soul that she really knew that she was enough. And oh, that shifted her whole psyche, her whole lens. I'm enough. So it's knowing those truths, combating with those truths, and then being a B-pluser. Just the other day, I dropped a high-profile luncheon and completely spaced it because I was taking care of my son who was going through some difficulties. And I'm on the phone, and she goes, where are you? Are you coming? And I'm like, oh, yes. Made my apologies, got off the phone, and I was on the edge of that vortex, and I went, wait. I'm a B-pluser, and I can allow myself to make mistakes. I apologized. I owned it. I was spending time with my son. B+.
I love it. B-pluser. Let's be a B-pluser. These are the kinds of insights and advice you can always find on ConnieSokol.com. Great things happening there.
Yes, we're doing a big event, huge headliner, excited. It's helping women, interfaith women, come together in faith, family, and community, solving our daily problems and challenges.
We love you, Connie. Look for details on that event at ConnieSokol.com. We'll link you from our website. Thank you, friend.